Today, I'll be talking about adapting test strategies to the modern deployment methods. To start with, more than 50% of the deployments that we have in the digital workload is directly attributed to the failures of the test strategy or the test approach. Simply stems from the idea that the change is constant. We keep moving. There's a change keeps coming. But our practices, our process, and our approach towards working certain things still remains the same. We are not catching up to the world as quick as the innovation and the technology is changing. So the whole idea of this talk is to say, if you're in testing, quality engineering, or simply working in the IT domain, change is something that you have to be comfortable about. And especially the deployments have changed the way how we deliver the software overall to our end users. The whole experience of it and the whole gamut of activities is also changing in this domain. So let's start. A little bit about me. I am Sowmya SRIDHARAMURTY. I am a solution delivery and a release engineering manager at Kiva. It's a tech-based company from Netherlands. When I'm not working, I love mentoring, connecting with the young talents face-to-face from the universities to bridge the gap. And then I do a lot of reading and writing, do the brain dumping. When I'm not doing any of these, I love spending time with my 9-year-old son and then do a little bit of gardening. That's a little bit about me. If you're in LinkedIn, please do connect. I would love to share ideas along with you as well. So change, like I said, is something that's constant. It keeps happening, especially in the IT landscape. If I have a time machine, and I can take you 10, 15 years ago, how a software was developed and delivered and how it was tested, the whole scene was different. But since I don't have, I will try and do my best in here. So since 2010, almost from the time when I started, around 2007 is when I started my career. From 2010, if you see, there has been changing how the deployment or the whole pipeline of the releases has been changing, yet the test engineering is also changing along with it. If you see from around 2000s, the usual emergence of the DevOps, the agile wave, the whole mindset of how we should work. Now it was mostly about a philosophy. It was not about any tool, but it's a mindset. And this was topped up with the DevOps practices of development with the tools coming in. This is the whole idea of left shift testing started. People started embracing left shift testing. Test early, fail fast. Change your course of action. And introducing automation early in your development cycle was the idea. And then a few years ahead, just 5, 6 years ahead, containerizations, Dockers and Kubernetes, where that is infrastructure agnostic. This was a whole moment when the idea of, hey, we are not good enough just as a test engineers, We have to be SDETs as well. And the whole industry split apart. You're a test engineer, I'm an SDET. And the badge of wearing SDET was like really taken very seriously. People, they think they're notch above. Few years ahead, you see microservices coming in. 10 to 15 years since then, API-first approach in the testing has always been dominant. Microservices is one thing which has changed the gamut of activities and today's innovation that we see, including IoTs, metaverse, AI, GitOps, anything that you discuss, the whole DNA is run with API. So API testing, API test-first approach was the change in our test engineering practices that we got. But if you see today, as we stand, we're not just talking about one cloud, but multi-cloud environments, hybrid cloud infrastructure, which means security testing, performance. These are embraced as a part of your day-to-day, daily activities for a test engineer, which was not the case when I started back in 2009. It was all about testing, just functional testing, and release it to the customer. But today, I have to do something more than that. So that's the need. So the whole delivery activity has been changing. So this story is about how we as a team had to go through this change, and especially me, who was just a recipient to a deliver, how I should help my team to come up with this change, be comfortable with this change, and change our testing practices when we moved from our traditional development to the new and a modern deployment methodology. Just to build in some context, this is how we used to work. No surprises here. We had a traditional working development web application. It was a single service. Of course, it was a microservice, but just one microservice running attached to one DB and some interdependencies. We had a usual data plane testing and delivery. Usual Scrum practices, Scrum rituals being followed. So normal, nothing usual routine, nothing new. And this is what the team was comfortable working for the last 10 years. And to bring in a little more depth into our testing practices, you see, we had our usual data plane like all other development teams. We follow test practices in the test system, test practices in the acceptance system, exit criteria, entry criteria, all good, go, yes, let's go for the production. And then the test engineering teams is cut off right after the UAT environment. What's happening in the production, what data we are collecting, how the users are using it, no clue. Unless somebody comes to us and gives, hey, that customer is shouting from that side, this end user has this problem. There was no other way that we had a direct interaction with the users to get to feel how they're using our application. Now, this in a high level, if I break it down into 4 different phases of our development and how our test engineering team was involved or doing their testing in their day-to-day basis, this is pretty much it, in a very high level, in a nutshell. Again, there is no surprises here, right? It's pretty much you can relate to, this is what you guys will be doing even in your day-to-day testing activities in your respective organizations. Now, cutting the chase, coming directly to the change that we faced, it was a time when there multiple dimensions were involved and why we had to bring in this change. Business was scaling. We didn't want it to work weekends. Deployments on the weekends was always fucked up. Like Chris mentioned in his talk, release engineering team always in a chaos, working late nights in the evening, not getting the resources. So there was a lot of challenges, including the scaling of the business. So now is when the company decided, okay, we need to change the way we are delivering the solution to our end users. And then after the brainstorming, considering various solutions, we went ahead with the idea of, let's do blue-green deployment. Let me take a break, or a small break, to see how many of you have worked in the blue-green deployment strategy. 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys are thinking, maybe? No, may not be. Like 5, 6 hands up in the air, thank you. So just for the benefit of the people who have not worked in the blue-green deployment, this is nothing but you have 2 production servers, exactly same like each other, but at any point in time, just one server will be up and running while the other server will be dormant. The idea of having this is you have more flexibility. You can do the deployments on the weekdays without having to worry that you will disrupt the business. You can do right in between the business hours because you're not using the live system. Testers will get more free hands to do right shift testing, and there are so many things which I will cover in the future slides. The one thing that we have to see is from the data plane, everything is the same. But once the deployment package is prepared, how we are going to deploy and how the dependencies are handled, what the rollback is being done, and how this rollback and version control is done. All these things, this was new for test engineers because they weren't involved initially. And now there was a need that they all have to be involved, they understand this activity, and they contribute it on a day-to-day basis. Now, I know this change was coming. I know as a test leader, I have to face this head-on, and also have to prep my team to suffice this blue-green deployment and also testing and our test structure and our test approaches. How? So as a leader, it's not just about me changing things strategically, but also tactically. A tactical approach comes with an operations. You have to change things operationally at the ground level. Things looks beautiful on paper. Everything is a success. But when you actually bring it to the people, everything is a people thing, right? It's never a technology. It's always about the people. And if the people is not on board and they don't know what to do, how to do, if the direction is not given, there is a failure. And for our new deployment process, it was necessary that I approach this one. Now, as a test leader, how shall I take this? I have 6 months in hand. I had to bring in this change, onboard my team. That's when I was overwhelmed. I was thinking I'm going to fail in this work, but then I did a quick survey. I reached out to 120 members in my LinkedIn, giving them a short form to fill up just to understand how they receive the change, what challenges they have when such a change comes in, especially when the whole delivery structure is changing. So it was very surprising, and well, it's not very surprising. If you see 63% of them, they said that when they're not even involved in the change or in the process, they're not even aware such things is happening, especially the test engineers. Something comes as an FYI, and many times they have to spend time in learning and doing stuff themselves and figuring out the way. which is quite frustrating. And all along the way, you still have to fight, works in my machine, not in yours, kind of a scenario. Right? And 52% expressed that they felt left behind and they wanted a leader to stand for them, show them the way, how it has to be done, even though if it is obvious, but it was necessary they communicate. So this short survey gave me a very good heads up that how I should take this challenge head on with my team. And a strategy is nothing but a plan of action so that it doesn't disrupt the team or put them in an uncomfortable position. So as a strategy, I went into the 5 dimensions. Now, because I have just 20 minutes and each of these dimensions needs 20 minutes on its own, I will only focus on the tactical approach, which is the operational part that we changed in our test engineering when we moved from our traditional deployment process, a weekly, overnight deployment, weekend maintenance process to the blue-green deployment when during the weekdays, during the business hours, we are doing the deployment and how our test engineering practices had to change a little bit. So if you're bringing in a change, maybe this can be a little handy. All these 5 layers are very important and it has to be handled. That should be your strategy. If you go change just the operational part, just the technology part, it will not be received well. It is just a chaos. So you have to work with the people and the technology. So let's see the impact. With this new change, we had quite a few impact that was coming by, especially the data synchronization. Although we have 2 production servers, both production servers are pointing at the same database. So when we update one production system and the other production system is just running from the old version of it, and there are long transactions running, the shift cannot happen just like that on a switch. The transaction should complete, and both these systems are referring to the same database. When the new system is up and running and we find it stable, the request starts moving to the new system. For the brief period of time, the old system will also be up and running. Now, there is a slight inconsistency in application for a few hours at least. So we have to ensure that this movement or the new features when you have involved or delivered is not disrupting the business cases, especially in your ERP scenarios where you're doing some warehouse management, bringing in an invoice, doing the payment, and then some data is like changed overnight and you don't know what's happening. During this change, we should also keep in mind, whenever we switched off the old system and came to the new system, there were chances that users were being logged off. So we were in between a transaction, generating a report, creating a finance or an invoice or a lead generation. You're doing some action, and you get to know you're logged off and the data is gone. Or you're no more able to track it. Now that's confusing for many users. So as a test engineering team, this was never our routine. This was never taken care of because it was one system, one update, system always up and running. Now we have to handle this. This is a new scenario that we had to include in our regression tests. We had to include as a part of our testing approach. And how we do it, especially the system settings and configurations will also change. Parallel DB updates. If there are 2 transactions happening on a same DB, the timestamps are taken care of. Stored procedures are running as usual. So if you remember what I said, test engineering access was stopped at the UAT system. Anything beyond that, they weren't even aware what's happening. So when we were doing the DB changes, now we have to bring in the DB testing also into our testing routine. So let me tell you, none of my team members knew how to do DB testing. They didn't even know what an SQL code or a query would look like. So they needed a training. They needed a lot of talking, some motivation also that, hey, you can do it. We can do it. We may fail it at once. But I'm not entering the people part. It's a whole talk in itself. So there was the database testing that was onboarded. And there was just 3 testers. Scaling up the testers was also another part of this whole journey. Because we had a microservice architecture and it was a cloud-native application, the one superpower we got was IAC orchestration, which is you can kind of spin up a test system anytime, anywhere on a button click, and then have your own test environment, inject the data, test your functionalities, whatever you want to, tear down the system. So initially we used to go to the ops team to create a test user, put in the data migration, copy of the data. We can't do this. That configuration is not there. This dependency is not there. But with this new way of working and the new way of delivery, every tester was given a superpower to start their own test environment at any point in time. They can perform any test that they want, and just they have to be a little bit more responsible to tear down the system. Otherwise, it's just going to be a lot more cost for the company because it's a pay-as-you-go, right? So this gave us a lot of opportunity to perform a lot of other tests. Like we included security tests in our routine, which was never there before. Our API tests got a lot more modularized and easier because we are getting a clean system. There is no history, there is no junk data. You can do the testing perfect, all well, with the clean and hygienic data in the system. Now this is operationally, but when you spin up a system, you have to ensure the dependencies are in place. You have to ensure the data is in place. So our test script, our test automation scripts had a lot of pre-checks which has to be done before they actually execute the test automation. Because there is a pre-phase that has to be done. So which means our framework in which we used to develop the tests were changing. So there's a lot of change that the team has to onboard, and they have to understand this within 6 months and be comfortable with the idea. It was also said that we will not start winning in 1 year, but at some point, we have to be comfortable in doing these changes one step at a time, and a year from now, we should be okay with this idea and run smoothly. So these are a few things which got changed, revisited. Our test plans were changed. Our way of working was changed. Our solutioning was changed. So this whole strategy was revisited. And more of our test engineers were also in application monitoring. They got their own dashboards. They were able to see how our customers are communicating with their applications, which features are used more of data analytics. They were able to synthesize the data and understand how customers are perceiving our application. This gave them more confidence in testing our application. In fact, we have a very interesting conversations after this change was brought, maybe for the next talk. But overall, this whole change also triggered the way how we change. One small change is there was another marketing team. We also onboarded them onto the blue-green deployment, but a slight change is they didn't want it, all the customers to be given the same marketing application at once. They wanted to do this A/B kind of a scenario where only 80% of them, only 20% of them are given the new solution, 80% of them still on the old one. They wanted to see the behavior, how it is accepted on that new 20% customers and before moving all the other 80%. So it's pretty much the same, but then this is like the Canary deployment, where you slowly onboard your customers in a phase-wise. This one had a major hit from a performance perspective because we are not moving the whole request into the new system at once, but we are doing it in an incremental fashion. So the way we were doing a performance test had to change. And initially, in our traditional approach, our incremental tests were given outsourced. But now, after changing this one, because we also got the superpower of right shift testing, we just expanded the team as such, included more skill sets, and started to do performance testing also part of our usual test engineering routine. So this was our team structure initially. It was a traditional one. You have a Scrum tester, and then a regression tester, and an automation tester specialized into their respective field. From here, because of the new test approach, we also had to change our team structure strategy, and we moved to here. So now we have a business process platform. They do regression and all the automation script maintenance and all that stuff. And then we have a dedicated Scrum team testers who can spend a lot more time in product envisioning, solutioning, sitting with the developers, doing pair testing. And what used to happen is we used to rotate the testers. So a tester, if he is interested to do business process flow, they would swap with the Scrum team. In this way, they were getting enough juices flowing and not just getting stuck to one place. This also improved the team health overall. So from a structure and a strategy perspective, it is not just changing the operational tactics, but when a change is coming, you have to change at all levels: people, process, and technology. But in today's talk, I only did a call out for a tactical approach. So this is a summary. If you have to adapt your test strategies, change your tactical approach, for sure it is needed at the ground level, but also to the people. Come up with various test plans, test suite, identify where the impact is, and then onboard your team for these changes. You'll be just fine. Too quick to talk for 20 minutes, but it's a very impactful topic. You get to see this change coming way too soon in the coming years, in the next 6 years. According to the Gartner, 95% of the digital workload are already on the cloud-native applications. So this is not like maybe scenario. That is how it is going to be kind of a scenario. So thanks for listening to me. You've been a kind crowd. Cheers. if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for this great presentation. I still need you here for like 2-3 minutes. Actually, 3-4 minutes.
Sure.
Let's see the first question. Did you encounter issues with green-blue deployment where the database had to be changed or transformed with a new deployment? And can that be done?
So database, yes. So especially, we were working for the ERP solutions. So if you decide on changing a table, like for our finance applications, there was a new rule that came up in Sweden. They wanted some more customer data or some more invoices, some more fields in an invoicing template. We had to change the way the DB tables are being designed. So which means, yes, the DB will also be changed. So now remember, yes, we had also a challenge. Initially, we didn't account this in our testing. We didn't know. We were too novice. And once it happened, we had to change the table. The data migration didn't go well because there was inconsistencies in the table that blew up. And then again, when there was a stored procedure. In the stored procedure, the field was not updated. We failed in accounting for this testing. We learned through our mistakes. It was not a pleasant scenario. Yes, but then we added as a part of our regression testing in our DB tests. We also ensured our API tests are updated. So whenever there is a DB change, pretty much things can go wrong. We have our learning curve in this one, and we improved, yes.
Excellent, thank you. How do you see what will be the next step of the test strategy evolution?
What do you see what will be the next step of the test strategy evolution? Okay, I don't understand exactly what it means by test strategy evolution, but strategy is your plan of approach to tackle the challenge that you have. If you're talking about what the test ops is going to be in the future, it's going to be 100% cloud native, which means we don't have to worry about the underlying architecture of the infrastructure. You have it. All you need to worry about is being more creative for the application development. And that's why businesses like cloud native applications. So your test strategy will be more towards focusing on how I can embrace the new change that's coming. Today, you don't have to write the test case. And AI will take care. Today, you don't have to worry about the automated tests as well. You can upload the test case, and it generates the code itself. I'm part of that research. So the world is moving towards that. You don't have to worry about automated tests. You actually have to worry about decisions, biases, people management. So these things, that's going to be your further strategy. That's what I hope it answers.
All right. Based on your experience, how much will the spread of AI solutions affect the choice of the test strategy?
Yeah, it will affect a lot. Like I said, I'm involved in few researchers, and I'm also part of some product team as an honorary position to help them identify the gaps in the testing industry. It's going to change a lot. All we talked about today is a self-healing test. All it does is identify some locators, which is not, and find alternative ways of identifying the locators and run your automation. That's not self-healing according to me. But there are tests, like I said. You don't have to write a test case. It generates itself. It generates a universe of your test scripts. There is a more modularization coming in. Low code, no code will be your future of development and testing. So plug and play will be the kind of work mode in the coming years, because majority of the mundane retro activities are taken care by AI already. So your test strategy should also change accordingly.
Thank you so much. I will let you go now with a big applause.
Thank you.
Sowmya, thank you so much for the presentation.